The most HVAC companies don't lose money on bad jobs. They lose it on jobs that slowly drift over budget, 2%, 3%, 4%, and then without anybody reacting. And so your forecasted cost of completion shows you the leak before it becomes a year-end surprise. And so what I want to show here in this data set, and if you want this data set, there's a link to download it. Pretty straightforward data set. You just have the project ID, when it started, what it is, the market, who the project manager is, the value of the job, and then budget and projected. And you really just need essentially these columns, for this example, but you're going to have a lot more columns. You're going to have the job type, you might have location, a lot of different things. And you also might have statuses for bigger projects, like, right, you could have 5 rows for the same project, meaning like 20% complete, 30% complete, and then, things like that. But also, I understand to create these KPIs, the hardest part is getting your data structured. So I get that. But again, if you don't have your data structured to where you just literally have, if you want to also filter by month, but start date, project manager, budget, projected, right? If you have those 4 columns, you can do a lot of stuff. And then if you factor in job type, what installation, service, maintenance, all that stuff, then you could, create a sort of a deeper picture. Okay, so the first thing we need to do in this data set, pretty straightforward, just subtract these two, right? I mean, projected overrun, and we're actually not going to be calculating this in here. We're going to be using other formulas. But if you wanted it at the row level, you just delete projected minus budget, right? So equals this minus this. This is your final cost. And then from here, a positive number is bad, right? Positive number means over budget. And then once you have this, you could just, filter number filters, greater than 0, essentially. And then now you have every project over budget. But this doesn't really give you much insights. Like in other words, like for Carlos, how many projects was he over versus under? What was his average? If you wanted, the thing is, doing an average over budget here isn't that valuable because you don't have the job type. Like installations would be, could have a higher, number compared to maintenance. Okay, so what we want to do here is, the first thing is we want to get a unique list of the PMs. And I mean, to be fair, you can just, there's only 3, you could copy these 3, but I want to show you the formula. So we have, say, PM, and then equals unique, and then here. So we have that. And then let's just sort it alphabetically. If you have more people in your team, you might also want to do this at the tech level. But if you have, only 3, then it isn't that big of a deal. But if you have, 5 or 8 or 10, alphabetically, makes it easier to understand. So budget versus, say, actual, or I think we called it projected. Let me see here. Yeah. So the budget, and then the projected is the end projection, right? Projected final cost. And so what I'll call this is, we can call it final. It's just easier to understand. Sometimes the terminology can be confusing, but budget and then say final cost. Okay, so here we wanna sum the budget based off of PM, right? So equals sum if s. We want the budget cost, comma, where the PM, comma, is cell B3. I'll just delete this. I don't like that extra part. B3. And so we got that. Copy, paste down, Control Shift 4 to format it as $1. And so we got that. And then final cost is the same thing, it's just on a different column. Right? So we know the PM is in cell B3, at least for Brandon. So sum if s, projected final cost, comma, with the PM here, comma, B3. Copy, paste, Control Shift 4. And then you can do, say, over under dollars, and then equals this minus this. Copy that down. So again, a positive number is over and a negative number is under budget, right? Because oftentimes you see a negative number and you think it's a bad thing. And then finally, just a percentage. And so the percentage is going to equal final cost minus budget divided by budget. But we already did the final cost minus budget here, which is why I wanted to do it. That divided by this. And then you can see you have, and this is on average, right? Here, we need to add one more thing actually. We need to add active jobs. Sorry about that. So, comma, because this is for now, right? This is what you want to look at now. Active. And then same thing here. Active. Oh, okay. It's pretty much the same numbers. This came down a little bit. And so yeah, so that's essentially how you calculate it. And let's just create one quick visualization. Let's just do the PM and the percentage. Insert. You can do recommended. You can do this chart. You can do this chart. However you want to do it. It's gonna paint sort of the same picture. And then let me get the title just from here instead of having to type it in again. And I'll make it just a little bit smaller. And if you want the values here, you can just click on the chart, click the little crosshair, and go to data labels, and you can see it here. And you might want to make this one red or something. But yeah, that's essentially how you calculate it. Pretty straightforward, KPI. And if you're in the book or if you're watching the videos, there's going to be a lot more related to this because you're going to want to see things. This is like a 30,000 foot view, right? Next, you're going to want to see what percentage of jobs by Brandon, by Carlos, by Lewis are over budget versus under budget, right? And then also you can break it down by job type because once you do job type, then you can get way more granular. So all those things, if you have the data, can be done. If you don't, I'm going to be making videos on that stuff and you'll be able to get the spreadsheet. So again, if you want this file, there's a link to download it. If you can't find the link, questions@databoards.io. Shoot me an email. Also, if you need some help structuring your data like this or getting the insights from your data, shoot me an email or there's a link to my calendar. But either way, that's all I got for this one, and I'll see you in future videos.